Canada has always been a top choice for Indian students because of the world class education it offers. However, the shifting policies and the rising cost has made smart planning more important than ever. Joining us today to unpack what's new, what to expect, and how to prepare for it in 2026 is Jack Kim, partner at Fragomen Canada, an immigration expert who has guided everyone from Fortune 10 companies to individuals on their move to Canada. He's here to help us break down what's changing in 2026 and how Indian students can plan for a smarter study, work, and beyond. Is Canada still a land of opportunities for Indian students, or are we entering a phase where planning has never been more important?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, smart planning really, really matters now. And like many other countries in the world, Canada is going through this recalibration
Yes.
of their international student program and re-examining where it is. And there's been a shift in focus where not everybody can continue on after graduation,
Right.
for instance. There's select programs where you can do so. And so yeah, it takes a lot of thought and kind of mapping out your journey to be able to remain in Canada after graduation.
Right. So planning has never been more important.
Indeed.
Jack, do you think the students are losing interest in Canada, or are they just being thoughtful and strategic because of all the new policy changes and rules?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are fewer spots which you can kind of continue your life in Canada now due to the changes in labor shortage related fields of study. If you're going to a public college, there's even like a language test that you have to do. If you go to university as
Hmm.
well, PR has gone a little bit more tougher
Right.
in the past 2 or 3 years. So I don't think it's a lack of interest because international students are still looking at Canada
Right.
as a very desirable
Look.
location, especially nowadays with some of the stuff that's happening in the rest of the world.
Right.
Canada still is a very safe place, but yeah, you have to really think about it and really map things out.
For those who still have Canada as their top destination, the big question is, where do they begin? Do they choose public universities, private universities, community colleges, or pathways? Could you tell us a little bit more about the pathway programs as well? Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
it depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to eventually settle in Canada, uh, you have to kind of look at the long road of it, from what type of education you want and what kind of skill set you want to build, which will help you get a job in Canada, and then that in turn will help you get PR
Yeah,
at the same time.
right.
So I'm assuming that you're studying something that's very interesting to you right now, like if you're going to a public college and you already have a degree and want to augment that, then you need to go into a labor shortage related
Right.
field of study to get a post graduation work permit, which is your ticket to remaining
Hmm.
in Canada.
Yes.
And then that labor shortage related occupation can help you with express entry, for instance, which is the principal vehicle of the Canadian government to choose
Right.
Canadian or to permanent residence. And then if you're going to university, it doesn't matter as much, but for PR purposes, you also want to see if you want to go into one of these labor shortage related fields of study, or which will translate into an occupation that's
Right.
there, and then you have a better chance of getting a PR.
Right.
So yeah, there's different pathways depending on what you want to do.
Could you help us understand more about the pathway programs? Are they a smart choice for students who are looking to balance their cost?
Ultimately, it boils down to permanent residence and the
Right.
way that the Canadian government is now choosing permanent residents.
Right.
In express entry specifically, there are these labor shortage related, specific occupation related draws. So STEM,
Right.
healthcare, education, even skilled trades. And if you belong in an occupation demonstrated by your job, your role, and all that, then you have a better chance of being drawn and invited to apply under express entry. Now,
Right.
if you have an employer that is recognized by the province under the
Right.
provincial nominee programs too, these provinces, depending on where you're going, also have these very occupation specific
Specific.
fields or streams. And so either way, you're kind of building up your chances of becoming a permanent resident if you choose these occupations. So I think that's the chief draw here right now.
And these would be specific to provinces.
Yeah, I mean, there are differences between some provinces, but I mean, in general, there are some like the ones that I just mentioned, like yeah, STEM and healthcare
Okay.
education.
Right.
That is also there. Now, I also have to mention that if you speak French and you're a francophone, there has never been more of an emphasis by the Canadian government to have francophones work outside of Quebec and
Quebec.
settle outside of Quebec right now.
Okay.
It is a policy objective. And so if you're able to speak French and demonstrate that through language exams and all that,
Okay.
then that is probably your best bet right now to
So
become a
it's
permanent
not.
resident.
So it's not only just in Quebec. It can be outside of Quebec and our other provinces as well.
Well, yeah, the French definitely, you have to be outside of Quebec.
Okay.
As well. Express entry only operates outside of Quebec.
Okay.
Quebec does have its own rules, and
Yes.
the inverse is that in Quebec, if you can't speak French, it's really going to be difficult
Right,
for you to
right.
settle
Yes,
at this
yes.
point.
Now let's talk about the big question, something that is on the students' mind even before they get their admissions: PR, permanent residency. So we've noticed that the students ask about the PR even before they've received their admissions. So how realistic is that right now?
I have to be honest; it's hard right now. If
Right.
you look at the number of people in the express entry pool, the number of people who have a score of 450 or more at this present time, there's 70, 80,000 people, and right
In
now,
waiting.
yeah, waiting.
Waiting.
And 450 is a really decent score. It's a fairly high express entry score
Right.
right now. So unless you fall into these occupation specific draws and you're waiting for the general like Canadian experience class draw, yeah, there's a low chance. Now that doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case, and you know these occupation specific draws can change depending on labor market conditions.
Right.
So if you are a graduating student right now or planning your future, then you want to kind of look into what the labor market is dictating.
So that would give the student an advantage.
Yeah, exactly. So, like for instance, English literature, as much as I love it, may not be the most field of study.
Yeah.
But if you're going into nursing or even skilled trades, into carpentry or becoming an electrician,
Yes.
or if you're looking at studying the French language and can demonstrate proficiency, there are work permit and permanent residence options right now. But in the meantime, you want to find a job and kind of wait things out to see how the permanent residence regime is going to change.
Right, right. And Jack, how much does the choice of institution or province actually impact the students' chances of work permit and PR later on?
Yeah, sometimes it like the province of Ontario, where Toronto is, and a major city where international students want to come, there could be a lot of economic opportunities. But there's a lot of competition at the same time. For instance, the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program is one of the largest in Canada as well. Whereas, like for instance, in the Atlantic provinces, the Atlantic Immigration Pilot or Program now is a fairly well-run program, but there may not be as many opportunities in these types of provinces. So there's a balance of where you want to settle. Also, lifestyle is a big choice.
Yes.
Toronto's a bustling city, huge South Asian population, whereas some of these other smaller cities or even rural places might not have that type of cultural lifestyle. Yeah. So for a student, I know when I was young, I wanted the bustle and and have everything. So,
Understandably.
yeah.
Work experience is a big piece of the puzzle. So, will part-time jobs, co-ops, and internships be available for the Indian students in 2026?
Yeah, all of the above, I would say yes. That is correct. I mean, the co-op positions and the within the schools, like the schools are actively pushing these.
Yes.
So this is still there, and even some of the part-time jobs, because the number of international students is shrinking within Canada. The demand for them remains high.
Okay.
And because, on the other hand, some of them, for instance, lower skilled work permit options are also disappearing.
Okay.
The international students shouldn't find a hard time finding a job
Finding
or
jobs.
part-time job to support their studies as
Right.
well. Now, will that change, and will they kind of fiddle around with the hours that people can work off campus? They could, but at this point in time, we don't see that happening.
Jack, let's be honest, studying in Canada has never been more expensive and complicated. From the rising costs, the housing crisis, the GIC amount, the stricter documentation. Among these, what are the biggest challenges that the students are facing right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is trying to get this study permit
Sorry.
in itself. At the beginning, that's become a lot more strict. There's more
Right.
scrutiny.
Yes.
There are triaging mechanisms
Hmm.
within the visa offices that
Right.
make approvals a little more difficult
Hmm.
as well. So that it starts from there. The affordability is not only for international students; it's for Canadians in general.
Okay.
It's a ballot box question
Okay.
that is continuing, and people are tracking housing starts and things like that. And as international students were scapegoated to a certain degree
Sometimes.
last year in 2024 about this, and now Canadian public is starting to realize, I should say, that what, we should start building houses too at the same time. It's not all immigration, right? So
Right.
and the Canadian government, I think, has been successful in tampering that. If you look at the Canadian population growth in Q1 and Q2 of this year, it's been 0%
Okay.
because of some of the cutbacks they've had in immigration.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you think about it, yeah, the Canadian birth rate is very low. If you don't have immigration, your population is going to go down. And so
Right.
Canada has to start balancing these types of things.
Right.
So it's a much more holistic view of what has to happen in the future.
So, Jack, what kind of planning can students and parents do to avoid any setbacks and surprises?
Yeah, I think the occupations that you're thinking of, I mean, the job market in itself is fast evolving. So the
Right.
jobs of today may not be the jobs of tomorrow.
Right.
And so in Canada, we have this saying where one of our most famous hockey players, Wayne Gretzky, said, "You want to skate where the puck is going, not where the
Okay.
puck is right now."
Right.
And so that's what you want to do. And so that takes a little bit of research. Like, what are the jobs of tomorrow? Because if there's one thing that the Canadian government will likely never ever decline, is somebody coming in for a high skilled occupation. But that what that means can be different between the era, like 30 years ago, that might have been somebody working on a pipeline and a welder. Now it could be somebody in AI or something along
Right.
those lines as well. So you want to go there. And the case in point is with the recent announcements of the H-1B
Hmm.
system in the United States, there has been almost in unison a voice. Canada may want to regulate or recalibrate its immigration right now, but we should never say no to high skilled workers. And so, if there's one thing that you want to be, is you want to be looked at and perceived to be in that pool.
And finally, for the Indian students and parents who are listening to us, who may be feeling overwhelmed with all the decisions, what is your honest advice to them? What should they really be focusing on while choosing a program or a province?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, yeah, if you are looking at this and as a vehicle to settling in Canada, you have to enjoy what you're about to do. Don't go into a field of study just because you think it's going to be lucrative or it's going to help you with
Right.
your permanent residence, because you're going to fake it.
Hmm.
And employers will recognize that right off the bat, and you will not have success because it's going to be an uphill climb for you.
Yes.
What you want to do is choose a field of study that you're interested, you want to do, that you can genuinely think this will be a career for you, and then mold your immigration objectives to
To
that.
that.
And so that's a pathway that you have to research well. Talk to a professional, like at the FES, for instance, so that you are really mapping out this future, and get a no BS type assessment of what your chances are in any particular country. In Canada, I mean, despite everything that's gone on, we have not been as restrictive as other countries have been, and our political environment, our economic environment is relatively stable compared to some other countries as well. So it looks like we're weathering the storm when it comes to immigration, and we should be proud of it. Like the people are
Right.
saying, we need to bring back the immigration consensus where everybody was happy with everything's going on, not let's kick immigrants out. So in a country like Canada, I think parents and students can rest assured that as long as this continues, you'll have find a very pretty stable place to plant your future in.
That brings us to the end. And thank you so much, Jack, for being a part of this podcast. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay curious and stay prepared.